Hello, everybody. Welcome to week 2 of Writing 95. We are going to have 2 lecture videos for today. They're going to be broken into active reading strategies and narrative writing. You'll see those. I'll show you where to find them just in the modules as a reminder. First, let's talk a little bit of housekeeping. Um, so, as I was reviewing the prior knowledge quiz, I was noticing just some common grammar, maybe misconceptions or errors. And I wanted to at least have an opportunity for you guys to improve your grammar skills if you would like for some extra credit. So keep an eye out in the modules, the weekly modules, for another extra credit assignment added. It'll be italicized, so it'll be clearly different, and it'll also be clearly labeled as extra credit. But keep an eye out for those. Once I've got one in there, I'll have a little housekeeping slide like this, and we'll talk about that. Um, but keep an eye for them. So let's hop into active reading strategies. So what what is active reading? It is the process of deliberately engaging with ideas and information in a text, and often transforming that information into notes or other artifacts to record your understanding. This is basically the definition that I have for annotating, which was a part of that prior knowledge quiz. I did have a bit of a trick question on that. I gave you the exact definition and then a bunch of details on how to annotate. So we will talk about how to annotate here in a minute. Essentially, annotated or active reading is just having a conversation with a text as you go. It can be in your head, it can be by writing it down. And the reason why we do this, the reason why you're learning it now is that it helps increase comprehension and memory of what you're reading, and it builds a stronger knowledge base. So next time you read another piece of writing, you can pull from the previous sets of writing that you've read. When you are active reading, there are thousands of things you could be focusing on. These are the main, I'd say the 5 things that if you had to boil it down, these are what you should focus on. So main idea or thesis statement, when we're writing and reading academic work, we're looking for thesis statement. And we'll talk more about thesis statements as we get going into different aspects of this course. You want to look for things that support your main idea, support your thesis statement. You want to try and determine the goal or purpose of the text. You want to figure out who your intended audience is, who is this text targeting. And you can also, and want to be thinking about the credibility of the author. How trustworthy, how do you know they're trustworthy? What sort of knowledge base does the author have on the topic? So I mentioned annotating. Annotating is just a fancy way of saying making notes on a text. And you can annotate by underlining or circling information. You can use abbreviations. You can summarize whole chapters at the end of a text. You could just summarize paragraph by paragraph. My personal favorite way of annotating is by just leaving comments and questions in the margins. Um, I'll also define unknown terms occasionally if I come across something that is relevant to what I'm trying to learn. Over on the right, it's the right side is what you'd be looking at. It's the left side. But over here in this picture, we've got some sample annotation of what it could look like if you were annotating a textbook. Um, Drawing on diagrams and writing out some extra information is super helpful. Um, but really it's your own style, however is going to help you communicate with the text and remember what you read. You can also break active reading strategies and those annotation strategies into the before reading, as you read, and after reading. The before reading can happen really quick. The more you are doing these, the more it's just going to be second nature to just run through some questions in your brain of what you already know about the topic and what you don't. If you have the time to skim through and define terms right off the bat, that's a great way to start off your reading. And then as you read, those annotation strategies that we were listing before are really all you're doing as you read. You're just reading and trying to make notes and communicate. After reading, there are many ways you can reinforce the information. You could just write out a whole page summary of the chapter. You could do a whole outline. I know some of the biology classes require you to write an outline of the chapter that you've read. You could make your own exam questions, or you could try and teach what you learned to another student. So here we'll break down one final thing for the active reading strategies lecture. So target audience is something we're going to talk a lot about in this class as you write. And it changes depending on what you are doing. So we've got two terms when it comes to audience. We've got the real audience, which is anybody who realistically is going to read your story. It could be, in the case of this, I am realistically one of the few people who are probably going to read your essays for this class. You could be sharing your essay with a classmate or one of the tutors or a friend, even family member. But you want to try and figure out who your target audience is. And this is the specific person or people that the author, you guys, at the end of the first essay will really want to be like influencing. So your target audience can get really, really very specific. For example, we've got single men in their 30s who are living in the Baltimore, Maryland region. I don't know exactly what they are needing to read, but they are learning something from an essay, and it's very specifically targeted to these people. So why do we care who our target audience is? Um, we are going to change the way we write and we talk depending on who we're talking to. And we all naturally do this. You're going to talk differently to your boss than you do to your kids, than you do to your friends. And it's just codifying this into your writing and making sure that you are using the appropriate language for who will actually read your essay. The other really helpful piece of thinking about target audience is it'll help you strengthen your arguments when you have a specific audience in mind. So say you were writing a argumentative essay trying to persuade your audience um, to about the I don't know the if we should have a certain law passed, you would be targeting this essay to, you'd want to know who your audience is there. Because if you're targeting it towards the politicians that are going to pass the law, it's going to sound very different. And you're probably going to be using different examples than if you are talking to citizens who might vote on the law. So that is why having a target audience matters. So we will hop into the Canvas to just look at this active reading practice and show you guys where to find all the information. But essentially what you guys are going to be doing is reading one of the two short essays that I provided. They are down here. There was never a golden key or a limousine. This is a student essay that I found online through another college's writing lab. Or I know what you think of me, and this is published in I want to say it was like a New York Times blog by Tim Kreider. He's a published author. So we have two different varieties of essay, but you will be reading and using some active reading and annotating strategies in this assignment. So let's hop over into the Canvas, show you where to find it. So as a reminder, you go to your modules, and we will scroll down to week 2, pop it open. Got your overview and due dates. This active reading practice, I will need to get a due date plugged in apparently because my due date is not on there, but it will be due on Tuesday of this week. So you'll find your two essays linked below, and you'll be able to rewatch the lectures here. So if you would like to meet me in the narrative writing, I will see you in that lecture video.